Have you ever felt the universe flinch when you spoke your name, and nothing answered back? Imagine waking up one day and realizing the world has no memory of you. Not your friends, not your family, not even time itself. What if you were erased? Not from history, but from the very fabric of reality. This is the story of how I vanished, and how I fought to exist again. I remember waking up that morning feeling slightly older, a little more cynical, but mostly the same. It was my birthday. At least, I thought it was. July 14th. The date I had always circled on calendars, even as a child. But that morning, the date felt wrong. I reached for my phone. No notifications, no messages, not even from my mother. Strange. I shrugged it off at first. People forget. Life gets busy. But then I tried to log into my email. The prompt asked me for my birthdate. I typed it in. The system rejected it. Incorrect date. Please try again. I tried again. Same result. I frowned and opened up my digital ID folder. Birth certificate. Missing. Passport. No record found. School documents. Hospital records. Even my old social media accounts. All either gone or showing blank spaces where my name or birthdate used to be. My hands started to shake. Maybe it was a hack. A glitch in the system. But then I went to my photo wall. There used to be dozens of images. Childhood birthdays, family dinners, school trips. Now, half were gone. The others had faded, like sun-bleached memories. In some, I wasn't even in the frame anymore. I called my mother. Her voice was calm but confused. Who is this? It's me, your son. Silence. I'm sorry. I think you have the wrong number. The line went dead. That's when the fear kicked in. Not the surface kind, but the kind that coils around your spine. A quiet dread that whispers, you're not just alone, you're disappearing. I sat down and tried to steady my breathing. Maybe this was a dream. Or a psychotic break. But everything felt too real. The textures, the temperature, the weight of my own heartbeat. I opened the browser and typed in my name. Nothing. Not even a shadow of a mention. It was like I'd never existed. I reached out to an old college friend on Messenger. The little scene tick lit up, then nothing. Do you remember me? I typed. They blocked me. That's when I began to realize this wasn't about forgetting. It wasn't just people. It wasn't just technology. It was time itself. Time had stopped counting me. I was still here, breathing, thinking, existing, but as far as the universe was concerned, I was an empty placeholder. A human glitch. And somehow, I knew this was only the beginning. Because once time forgets you, what's left? I whispered my name to myself like a prayer. I didn't want to forget too. My name is Eli. My name is Eli. My name is Eli. And in the silence that followed, the walls around me felt a little thinner. Like reality itself was starting to let go of me. I didn't sleep that night. I watched the sky turn from black to blue like a canvas being erased. Birds chirped. Cars moved. The city breathed. but none of it felt like it belonged to me anymore. I walked outside just after dawn, desperate for human contact. Maybe my neighbors would recognize me. Maybe I'd been overthinking everything. I knocked on Mrs. Halvorson's door, the sweet old lady who used to bake cookies for the entire floor. She opened the door, looked at me with polite confusion. "Yes. Hi, it's Eli. From 4B. I just wanted to check in." She stared at me, eyes blank. "I'm sorry, dear. I've lived here for 15 years and I don't believe I've ever seen you." My heart sank. This woman had seen me grow up, had lent me sugar a dozen times, had comforted me when my cat died. Now I was a stranger. I tried others, mailman, shopkeeper, even the barista who used to know my order by heart. No one knew me, not even a flicker of recognition. Their eyes just glazed over me, like I was a fog drifting through the world. I stood in the middle of the town square, surrounded by hundreds of moving bodies, and never felt more invisible. Not ignored, erased. I bought a newspaper, just to see the date. July 15th. The next day, I'd lost time, hours, maybe a day. And I didn't remember falling asleep. I looked at a reflective shop window and saw my own face. My eyes looked hollow. I leaned closer, and for a brief, horrifying moment, my reflection blinked a beat too late. That's when I knew I wasn't just being forgotten by others. I was beginning to forget myself. I rushed home, tore through boxes until I found my old high school yearbook. I flipped through the pages. I wasn't in it. Not a single photo. Not a single name. But here's the worst part. I didn't feel shocked. I felt numb, as if some part of me had already accepted it. The erasure wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual. A whisper in my mind said, "Maybe you never existed at all." That's when I knew I had to act. If I didn't find someone, somewhere, who remembered me, soon, I wouldn't even remember myself. I spent the next few days locked inside my apartment, surrounded by every trace of myself I could find. Old letters, childhood drawings, clothes that still smelled faintly of detergent and summer. But even these were starting to fade. A note I had written the week before was now nothing but faint impressions of ink. A photo of me holding my dog as a teenager. My face had vanished from it completely. I kept a journal, writing down everything I remembered. Names, places, dreams. But each morning, the words were lighter, as if the page itself were forgetting them. As if time wasn't just forgetting me, it was trying to convince me I had never been. One night, after hours of desperation-fueled scrolling through conspiracy sites and obscure forums, I stumbled upon a link titled, "Echoes of the Unwritten." It wasn't indexed by any search engine. No URL, just a blinking cursor. I clicked it. A black screen. Then white text began to type itself out, as if someone, or something, on the other side was watching me. If you're reading this, time is unraveling around you. You are not alone. My breath caught in my throat. You are an echo, a temporal orphan, Time is trying to erase you because others have stopped remembering. Memory is gravity. It keeps you grounded. Without it, you drift. A chat window appeared below the text. A username blinked to life. Mira94. She typed, "What's your name?" I hesitated. My fingers hovered above the keyboard. Even now, typing it felt like forging something fragile. Eli. Mira replied instantly. "We've been watching you. We knew you'd find us. We've been looking for others like us, the rememberers." I asked who she was, how she knew me. She said she had once been a temporal physicist. That she worked in a lab studying time's flow through memory, a secret project, buried and denied. Then something went wrong. Time started rewriting itself. Memories anchor reality, she wrote. But when collective memory fades, time forgets the individual. Your life becomes optional, skipped over, collapsed into silence. I asked if it could be stopped. Only if you act fast. You have to build memory mass. Proof of your existence. Someone, anyone, must remember you. It doesn't matter who or what. Just be remembered. Another message came through. We meet at the crosspoint. Midnight. Downtown library. Basement. Door marked. Records. If you want answers, come. And then the screen went black. I sat for a long time, staring at the reflection of myself in the laptop's dark screen. I didn't recognize the face looking back. It blinked, then didn't blink at all. I grabbed my coat, my journal, and the last photo of me that still had a faint trace of my smile. If I didn't go now, I might never get another chance. I whispered one last time, just in case the wind remembered. My name is Eli. I was here. I was real. I am still here. And then I stepped into the night. The library stood like a fossil from a forgotten time, dusty, towering, and utterly silent. Midnight cloaked the streets outside, but inside, time felt strangely suspended. The lights flickered softly above long-forgotten bookshelves, and the air smelled like old paper and ink. I made my way to the basement. The elevator groaned on its way down, as if straining against something ancient. When the doors slid open, I was greeted by total silence and a single flickering bulb above a rusted metal door labeled "Records." I knocked once. Nothing. I pushed the door open. Inside, a circle of people sat beneath a bare light. They all looked different. Not in how they dressed, but in how they felt. Each of them wore a look I had come to know too well, the quiet terror of being half erased. And then she spoke. "Mira?" I asked. A woman in her 30s nodded. Her face was worn by sleepless nights, but her eyes were sharp. "We've been expecting you," she said. She invited me to sit. One by one, the others shared their stories. A man whose wedding ring still fit, but whose wife swore she'd never married. A girl who said her reflection sometimes belonged to someone else. A teenager whose house had vanished from city records, though he swore it was still there. They were all echoes. Like me. We exist on the fringes of time, Mira explained. Just outside its attention span. And the further we drift, the less tethered we become. Until eventually, we're nothing but breath and memory. And then, not even that. But why? I asked. Why is this happening? Mira turned to an old chalkboard. She drew a circle. Time is memory, she said. Not just clocks and calendars. Time only acknowledges what is remembered. If no one remembers you, if no record, no witness, no soul holds your existence in their mind, then you start to fade. Time is selective. It edits. It forgets. She pointed at the center of the circle. This is collective memory. Everything real exists here. But if your thread is pulled from that tapestry, you unravel. A shiver crawled through me. So what do? We resist, Mira said. We fight back with memories. You must record your story. Speak your name. Leave physical imprints. Anchor yourself in people's minds. Even if just one person remembers you, you remain. Someone passed me a small notebook and a pen. Blank pages. A fresh start. Write everything, Mira whispered. Even if it hurts. And I did. For hours, we sat there, remembering each other, sharing stories, reaffirming our truths. It wasn't just survival, it was resurrection. I was no longer alone. My name was spoken again. My face was seen. My voice was heard. And for the first time in days, I felt something I thought I had lost completely. Wait. I mattered again, even if just for tonight. I left the library that night with a new mission, not just to survive, but to exist. To persist. If time was memory, then I had to make myself unforgettable. Back in my apartment, I turned every surface into a canvas. My walls became timelines. My mirrors, journals. I stuck Polaroids of myself to the fridge, taped old receipts to the doors, carved my name into the wooden floorboards. My name, Eli, in block letters on every wall, every window, every drawer. I took out my phone and recorded my voice. Dozens of files. Me saying my name, recounting my favorite books, describing the taste of the cherry pie I once ate at a roadside diner in Wyoming. I wrote down memories like prayers, scraps of life stapled to the world. But it wasn't enough. Some days I'd wake up and find the recordings had turned to static. My name, blurred in pen. The photos, blank. The more I tried to stay, the more time tried to push me out. So I started going out, risking the world's apathy. I handed people old photos with notes. If you see this man, say his name. I dropped journal pages in public parks, wrote my name in chalk on sidewalks, whispered it to strangers on the bus. People looked at me like I was insane. Maybe I was. But then one day, something happened. A little girl, no older than 6, picked up one of my scattered journal pages outside the grocery store. She squinted at the drawing of my face, then looked at me. "Are you the man in the picture?" she asked. I nodded. "My name is Eli. Can you remember that?" She grinned. "Okay. I'll remember you." It was so small, so simple, but in that moment, something shifted. I felt it, like a click in the fabric of reality. A soft hum of acknowledgement. Time had noticed me, if only for a second. After that, I visited Mira and the Rememberers every week. We shared new techniques. Draw self-portraits, send letters to our past addresses, leave fingerprints on old newspapers. One woman married herself and filed the legal paperwork. A man bought a bench in a park and carved his name into it. These weren't acts of desperation anymore. They were rituals, ceremonies to anchor ourselves in time. I began painting a mural, on the side of an abandoned building, of all the faces I'd seen at the library. Faces fading from time, immortalized in color. The city started noticing. People asked questions, took photos. One night, I walked by and saw someone had added a name beneath my portrait. Eli was here. I stood there for a long time. And for the first time, I didn't need to whisper my name. Because someone else already had. It appeared on a night thick with fog. The kind of night where the world feels like it's been forgotten by the stars. The library was closed, Mira had gone silent, and I was wandering the edge of the city, where streets turned to whispers and streetlights flickered like old memories. That's when I saw it. A door, freestanding, alone. It stood at the center of an abandoned parking lot. No walls around it, no hinges, no signs. Just a black, wooden door with a brass handle and a word burned into the grain. Remember. I knew it was for me. My breath caught in my throat as I reached for the handle. My hand trembled. Not out of fear, but recognition. This door had waited lifetimes for me. I could feel it. Every erased moment. Every forgotten name. Every time my footsteps left no echo. They had all led here. The door was warm. I turned the handle, and the world folded. Not like falling asleep. Not like waking up. It was more like slipping between pages in a book. Into the binding, into the silent spine where stories are stitched together. I fell. Or maybe I floated. Maybe I dissolved. Then I was standing in a hallway of mirrors. Hundreds of them. On both sides. Some broken, some clean, all different. In each mirror, a version of me. A child clinging to a snow globe. A teenager laughing beside someone I no longer remembered. A version of me older than I'd ever been, eyes filled with sorrow. A version of me I didn't recognize at all. Every one of them looked at me. And then, together, they whispered, "Don't forget." I walked, past mirrors, past memories. Some I had never lived. Some I had. Then I came to the end of the corridor. There, in the final mirror, was not me, but her. Mira. Only she wasn't in a library. She stood at the base of a great tree, its bark covered in glowing symbols, its branches moving as if breathing. She smiled. "This is the root of time," she said, her voice echoing through the glass. "Where forgotten things grow." The mirror cracked, a single fracture down the middle. And behind it, I could see light. "Come through," she said. I raised my hand, touched the glass. It melted around my fingers. I stepped forward, and entered the heart of time. Light enveloped me like a second skin, warm, humming, alive. When I opened my eyes, I was standing on soft earth that glowed faintly beneath my feet, as if time itself had roots. The air shimmered with memory. Towering before me stood the tree. Mira had called it the root of time, but it looked nothing like any tree I'd ever known. Its bark pulsed with golden veins, running with moments and faces, like stories written in light. Its branches stretched far into a sky filled not with stars, but fragments, echoes of timelines, each one twinkling with the possibility of a life lived or lost. Mira stood at its base, her hand pressed gently against the trunk. She looked different here, older, or maybe more eternal. Her presence felt anchored, like she belonged to this place more than the world we had left. "Welcome," she said, "to the place where all forgotten selves are rooted. Every time a memory is lost, a version of you tries to survive here." I stepped forward. The ground rippled beneath my feet like water remembering how to be solid. "Why me?" I asked. Why was I the one being erased? Mira motioned toward the tree. "You were a fracture in time. A skipped beat in the cosmic heart. Something changed in your timeline. Something that shouldn't have. A paradox without a cause. Time didn't know what to do with you, so it began to unmake you." She led me around the tree. As we moved, I saw dozens, no, hundreds, of cocoons woven into the bark. Inside each one was a person. Me. Some smiled in their sleep. Others looked hollow. One had tears frozen on his cheeks. "These are your forgotten selves," Mira said. "Versions of you that time tried to bury. But they clung to life. To meaning. To memory." I reached out, touching one of the cocoons. The boy inside looked about 12. I remembered that face. My face. On the day I ran away from home, thinking I'd find freedom in solitude. He'd been forgotten for years. And yet, here he was. The tree hummed. The cocoons pulsed. I could feel them, every self I had ever been, stirring within me. A tidal wave of selves. "You can choose," Mira said. "You can stay here, become part of the root, a guardian of memory. Or, you can return. But you'll carry all of them with you. Every fragment, every fracture. You'll remember what time wants you to forget. What happens if I return?" Mira looked up into the sky of echoes. "You'll no longer be invisible. But you'll never be the same. Reality may reject you, fear you. But you'll be real. More real than anyone." I stood still, breath trembling. Then I said, "I want to remember. All of it." Mira smiled. She reached into the bark and pulled out something pulsing, a memory seed. She placed it in my palm. And the tree began to change. The branches twisted upward, bending light, opening a portal in the sky of time. With one last look at all the versions of me, forgotten, waiting, sleeping, I stepped through the gate. Back into the world, but no longer alone. Stepping through the portal felt like slipping into skin I hadn't worn in years. I was back. I could smell the morning. The asphalt warmed by the sun, the faint scent of jasmine on the wind, the distant echo of birdsong. But something was off. The world hadn't noticed. Cars rolled by. People chatted. A child chased a red balloon across the sidewalk, laughing. But no heads turned, no gasps, no recognition. I stood in the center of it all, alive, awake, and utterly unseen. I wandered through the streets I used to know. My apartment still stood, but my name wasn't on the buzzer. My mail slot was gone. The mailbox held unfamiliar names. I knocked on the door. A woman answered, kind, with tired eyes and a child on her hip. "Can I help you? This used to be my place." She gave me a cautious smile. "We've lived here for 6 years. 6. I had only been gone 4. I didn't know anymore. Time felt, stretched, folded, rewritten. I walked away. Next stop. The university. Maybe someone there would remember. Professor Heller, maybe. He had once said I had the brightest mind in his class. But the building was remodeled. The walls were covered with posters for classes I'd never heard of. Heller. Retired. No forwarding info. My records. Gone. In the library, I searched the archives. Nothing. Not a mention. Not a citation. It was as if every trace of my contribution, my learning, my presence had evaporated. I wasn't erased from memory. I was erased from history. And yet, I still existed. I sat on a bench outside the university and watched the people go by. For hours. It was there that I first noticed them, the shadows who didn't cast shadows. The people who moved like echoes, just slightly out of sync with the world. I followed one. She turned a corner into an alley and vanished. Another shimmered near a fountain, watching children, then faded into the light. I wasn't the only one. Later that night, I stood beneath the city lights, overwhelmed by silence. That's when I felt it. The memory seed Mira had given me pulsing in my chest. I closed my eyes, reached inward, and I saw them, my forgotten selves, standing in a circle around me, like constellations pulled into human form. The boy who ran away. The man who loved and lost. The version of me who never spoke aloud but thought louder than thunder. They all looked at me. "You are the sum of all we were," one of them said. "So make yourself known." I stood, not as a stranger, but as a witness, a survivor of non-existence. The world had forgotten me, but I remembered it all. And memory, true memory, is the first step to becoming real again. I returned to the place where it had all begun, the hilltop at the edge of the city where Mira had found me the first time. The air was different here, thinner, as if time itself held its breath. The sky shimmered in pulses. The stars flickered like candle flames trapped in wind. I knew now why I'd been forgotten. Why time had erased me. Because I had broken the loop once before. This was my second cycle. In the original thread of reality, I had tampered with something I shouldn't have. Tried to alter a moment in my past to save someone I loved. A sister. Alara. Her name returned like lightning through fog. I had traded my permanence to save hers. Time had undone me as the price. But not completely. The seed Mira gave me, the glimpses of my past, the tree of forgotten selves, they were fragments of my first timeline. Echoes that refused to fade. I sat down cross-legged and placed the memory seed on the ground before me. If time had erased me to preserve itself, then I had one final defiance left, to remember fully. To anchor myself not in one loop, but in all of them. I closed my eyes. Flashes. Alara's laugh. A broken bike on the sidewalk. Our parents fighting. The day I watched her drown in a river I was too afraid to enter. The time machine. The failed jump. My plea to the entity that governed time. It had no form, no face, only rules. I'll give anything, I had said. And it took everything. The seed pulsed. Time rippled. And I saw it. A spiral. Not a line. Not a loop. A spiral of choices, always folding inward. I had not been erased. I had been rerouted. I opened my eyes. The stars blinked in patterns I now understood. I reached upward. Not with hands, but with will, and pulled. Reality buckled. The air tore like fabric. And through the opening, I saw Alara. Sitting on a pier, laughing, alive. But she didn't know me. A choice. Step through, and vanish again. Or stay here, and rebuild. I looked to the seed. It had gone still. No more miracles. No more time games. Just one truth. I had broken the loop once. I could do it again. But not as a ghost. Not as a ripple. As a person. I stood. For the first time, I felt time settle around me, not rejecting, not erasing. Recognizing. I was real. And tomorrow, I would prove it. The world had shifted, subtly but permanently. The wind no longer felt like it passed through me but wrapped around me, warm and real. I could taste the morning air, feel the sun's gentle press against my skin, not like a phantom watching from behind glass, but like someone grounded in existence. It had been a week since I chose to stay. I hadn't spoken to Mira since the tree disappeared, nor had I gone near the place where I saw Alara. That vision felt like both a gift and a warning, an answer I couldn't chase without undoing the fragile progress I had made. Now, I kept a journal, a habit I never had before. Each morning, I wrote the date, my name, something small I had done the day before, a mark of permanence. Today, I wrote, July 23rd. I helped an old man carry his groceries. He smiled at me, called me, son. My name is _____. I exist. Each entry was an anchor. But there was one thing left undone. One memory I had yet to face. I returned to the river where Alara had drowned. The place was quieter than I remembered. The current gentle, the banks overgrown with moss. My feet stopped at the edge where I had once frozen in fear, watching my sister's small hand vanish beneath the surface. I sat down. I'm sorry, I whispered. The apology wasn't just for her. It was for the boy who didn't move. For the man who broke time trying to erase his guilt. For the forgotten versions of me who had screamed into the void, begging to be remembered. The wind carried something soft, a sound, a laugh, no, a memory, not a flashback, not an illusion. A true one. Alara sitting beside me, wet hair dripping, her laugh light. You always blamed yourself, she said, staring ahead. But it wasn't your fault. It was never your fault. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just listened. It was meant to happen. That's why time broke. Not because of guilt, but because of love. You loved too much, fought too hard to undo what couldn't be undone. I turned slowly. She wasn't there, but the warmth on the grass where she had sat remained. A reminder, a gift, and I knew I had been forgiven. Not just by her, but by time itself. The journal page fluttered in my hand. July 23rd. I am still here. I remember. And I am remembered. I stood, letting the river breeze hit my face. My story hadn't ended. It had restarted. And maybe one day, I would tell it all. To someone. To everyone. Because the last memory was the one where I chose to live. In the end, it's not memory that makes us real. It's our willingness to live, even when no one remembers. The universe may forget your name, your face, even your story, but the moment you choose to stay, choose to breathe, to feel, to forgive, that's when you exist again. Not because time allowed it, but because your heart did.